Thank you. When I was 11 years old, I found out that I was stupid. Now, not stupid like you've done something stupid and you feel like you've made a stupid decision. Like, that's who I was. I was stupid. And the interesting thing was that I couldn't make a decision otherwise because I had a test to prove that it was true. There was a test that I took when I was 11 years old, and I'd like to read you an excerpt. What they asked me to do was write my alphabet from A to Z in 1/2-inch letters. Doug took approximately 15 minutes to laboriously write the alphabet in 1/2-inch letters. He reversed the E and the L. He omitted the Z and struggled with the F and the S. He decided, after 5 minutes, that he finally was not able to write the Z. When I was 11 years old, I couldn't write my alphabet from A to Z. Now, my mother told me that I wasn't stupid. But when you're 11 years old and, like me, almost 6 feet tall, and you can't write your alphabet, you're stupid. Luckily, I was given some height, and I doubled down on that particular strength and worked my behind off to develop my jump shot because I knew my mind was not going to get me anywhere. From the time that test was taken in 5th grade to the time I graduated high school, I never passed a grade on my own merit. I either went to summer school, I got pushed through because I was an athlete, or I got pushed through because the teacher could not imagine dealing with me for a second year. Luckily, I got an opportunity to go play basketball for Liberty University. They took a chance on me. The problem was that my grades were so poor that my first year I had to redshirt, which meant I couldn't play. Basketball was all I had. By the time my second year came around, I had the opportunity to play, finally. Another problem, my GPA, 1.4. I learned something about Liberty that hadn't been true for me my entire life, which was they expected me to go to class. That was a problem for me. They expected me to actually pass the test and achieve a grade point average worthy to be a Division I college basketball player. I had a 1.4. I was super depressed. I didn't know if I was going to get to play basketball. And if I didn't, what then? That's when I got a call to go to Sarah's office. Sarah was my academic advisor, and I had no choice. I had to go. And so I walked in Sarah's office, and before I could even get in the door, I realized that she was angry. There's a look on her face. And it was interesting because it wasn't the type of anger like you're having a bad day or someone pulled out in front of you. It was the kind of anger that said, someone has insulted me personally. It was a very deep sort of anger. Before I could even sit down, Sarah pointed at me. And she said, "You know what your problem is? Your problem is that you're a victim." And I can remember in that moment thinking, oh, what a relief. Finally, someone else understands that I didn't ask for these diagnoses. I didn't ask for ADD or dyslexia or narcolepsy or any of the other deficiencies that I had been given. I didn't ask for any of these. Of course I'm a victim. Don't you think I would have chosen something different? What Sarah said to me next fundamentally changed my life and the way that I approached every moment that I was alive. What Sarah said to me next was, you know what your problem is? Your problem is that you're a victim. You're a victim of your own thinking. Sarah went on to tell me that I was going to come to her office every single day after school. I didn't really have a choice. I wanted to keep my scholarship. And so I figured that I would do with Sarah what I had done for the most part, almost every other teacher that had come into my life at some point or another. And that was comply and wait for her to give up. But she didn't. So when I came in to her office the next day, she embarrassed me in a way that I haven't been embarrassed since. She gave me something that even though it embarrassed me, it's changed my life. What Sarah gave me that day is a box of crayons. A box of crayons and a stack of colored construction paper. She told me that I was going to sit in her office, she was going to read me my homework, and I was going to draw pictures. Now, I was early 20s, 6'7", 230 pounds, Division I college athlete. I'm pretty sure I was above coloring. But Sarah didn't care. And so that's what we did. Every day I would go to her office and I would color, I would draw pictures. And she didn't care what they looked like, or she didn't care if they made any sense to her, as long as they made some sense to me. Every day I went to Sarah's office and colored. After a couple of weeks, something interesting began to happen. After a couple of weeks, I began to remember some of the things that Sarah had read to me. I remembered some of the pictures that I had drawn. I remembered some of those things during test time. I actually started wanting to sort of even go to class. And then the end of the semester happened. At the end of the semester, I can remember that I found myself on this particular day in the library. There weren't many people in the library that day. It was the end of the semester. Most people had gone home. But I stayed because I wanted to be alone when I saw my grades. I didn't make a habit of looking at my grades. They typically did not tell me anything good about myself. As I was sitting at that computer, clicking view grades, I can remember thinking, gosh, I hope this is just good enough to help me play basketball. And that's when I had what I call my alarm clock moment. Now, all of us have had an alarm clock moment at some point in our life. It's that feeling you get when you realize that you've slept in, right? Your alarm clock didn't go off, and you're going to be late for something that's extremely important. It's that pit in your stomach, that sense of panic, and then the adrenaline that kicks in, right? Like 800 cups of coffee. You begin to frantically do everything you can to make up for any lost time that you can. Every moment becomes valuable because you're racing against the clock. The reason I felt that feeling was because I realized in that moment that my 1.4 had become a 3.4. And I realized in that moment that Sarah was right. And I had to change my mind. Another problem, this was 2006. Facebook, Twitter, social media, they were relatively new, but they were changing our world. Lots of things were changing, and our world was beginning to really ramp up and move quicker and differently. And the problem was I didn't feel like I could develop as fast as the world was moving. I needed help. I needed a mentor. I needed a lot of mentors because there were so many areas where I needed to develop. One mentor just wouldn't do. And so I thought to myself, if I was maybe wrong about what I could accomplish, maybe I've been wrong about mentorship this whole time. Because traditionally, we believe that mentorship is sort of like passing a baton. But I recognized that the race had changed. Maybe that was true 100 years ago. But the internet has changed the race. And now it's not so much about passing a baton because we all have a baton. It's in your pocket or in your purse, your cell phone. And so I began reading at that time, 6th grade reading comprehension, everything that I could, anything I could get my hands on, listening to anything that I could. And my wife will even tell you to this day that if I have a brief moment by myself, my headphones go in, and there's a podcast or a book, because I still am in that alarm clock moment. There's still so much to learn and so much to take in. I came across this quote that changed the way I thought about mentorship. It's a quote by Ralph Waldo Emerson. He said, "In my walks, every man I meet is superior to me in some way. And in that, I learn from him." I realized that maybe mentorship was not this thing that I had to convince someone that was in a position that I wanted to be in one day to take me under their wing, to do everything that they said to do, and hope to goodness they give me an opportunity. Maybe I have more control over this mentor thing. As I began to operate under this definition of mentorship, 5.5 mentors began to quickly appear in my life. These 5.5 mentors have been responsible for taking a kid who couldn't spell and helping him to become a man who makes a living writing things. A kid that had a speech impediment to a kid that talks to groups. And so I believe that if you look at it in the same way I do, and you pay attention to these 5.5 mentors and employ them in your life, you'll be able to have similar results. But before I tell you about number 1, there's a more important number. 0. This is important. If you get nothing else, please get this. 0 is the percentage of responsibility that these mentors and anyone else on this planet has toward your personal development. After all, they call it personal development, right? So my first mentor, this is a mentor that I call the worldview mentor. My worldview mentor is a person who has set way above my perspective. When I think of this worldview mentor, I think of an astronaut or a pilot in an A-10 Thunderbolt, right? This is someone who's able to see past my perspective and help me to navigate toward my vision. For me, this mentor has been best represented by what most of you would consider a traditional mentor, which is Tom and Molly Brazil, which they're here today. They have helped me navigate in ways and helped me get wins for myself that I could have never gotten. And I believe with all my heart that that was predicated by that 0 piece. That I took personal responsibility and accountability, and I have squeezed that relationship as hard as I could to get as much wisdom as I could out of those two. My second is the street view mentor. If the worldview mentor sits way above your perspective, the street view mentor stands with you in the same perspective. As I've driven through life, at times, and I'm sure many of you can appreciate this, at times you can swerve in and out of where you need to be. I've been lucky to have been married to a beautiful woman that I consider my street view mentor, Meredith. We'll be married 9 years this September. And every time I start to cross the yellow line, she's there to pull the wheel back. And I do swerve into the middle line. The next is the time machine mentor. Now, the time machine mentor is a lot of fun. They don't have office hours. Time machine mentors are people in our past. Some of my personal favorites have been people like Abraham Lincoln, Dale Carnegie. You may have heard of this guy. His name's Jesus. Your time machine mentors could be anyone. Now, people say that experience is the best teacher, but I'll tell you that I believe sometimes experience is the teacher of fools. Because it's foolish to have to learn something through an experience that you can learn in other ways. And we have volumes of opportunity to learn from these particular mentors. Next is the stealth. I love the stealth. When I think of a stealth mentor, I think about a ninja. Whether you guys know it or not, you've been mentoring me all day. And I've interacted with many of you already. And I know that every single person, there's more wisdom and knowledge in this collective room than is on this stage. And it's my responsibility to take advantage of that and then share that with other people. The next one is the categorical mentor. When I think about a categorical mentor, I think about a file cabinet. Except this file cabinet has a head, 2 arms, and 2 legs. And I can go into this file because you guys know that you know people that there are things that you want to replicate, but there are also things that you want nothing to do with, right? So I can go in and I can pull out a file and say, gosh, that work ethic, that's something I can use. That's something I can learn from. Their health and wellness, the way they take care of themselves. I can learn from that. I've seen their kids. I'll leave that part, right? So it's important to note. And then you may wonder why 5.5 and not 6. Well, 5.5 because this next mentor is one of the most important, but they shouldn't take up a lot of your time. This is the anti-mentor. Now, your anti-mentor, I'm not even going to define that because that's the person who popped in your head when you saw anti-mentor. We all have those. But this is important, right? This mentor is important because it's important to know what you don't want as much as it's important to know what you do want. So my question to you today is, in what way do you need it to develop? Sarah did not teach me to be a mentor. She was a great mentor, but what she taught me was how to be mentored. Menteeship is as important as anything else. And here's what I've learned. Mentorship is not something that is done to you. Mentorship is something that you do for yourself with the help of other people. Thank you. Thank you.